Whatever the algorithm was about to serve you next, delete it, swipe it away, because the next 19 minutes are not a rehash of a trial you already watched end to end, and they are not a reaction to a verdict you already fought about in a group chat. The trial was the wrapping paper. Tonight is about what was inside the box. And by the time the crisis teams camped on the 32nd floor of a certain Manhattan tower finished their morning briefing, the footage at the heart of this story will already be sitting on servers across 4 continents, duplicated, mirrored, unrecallable. No injunction in the American legal system travels faster than an upload bar. No letterhead ever printed has outrun a hard drive that was copied the night before. So keep your thumb off that recommendation rail. What you are hearing right now is a eulogy being rehearsed while the man of honor is still signing autographs. And the name being practiced is not the name this industry spent 30 years preparing you to read. The house rule, stated before we go one step further. Every sentence you are about to hear is one of 3 things: sworn public record, a document filed in a court of law, or an allegation, and I will say the word allegation out loud the moment one leaves my mouth. The paperwork behind the confirmed material exists. I have read every page of it, and the instant we step off the verified path, I will plant the flag myself. That is the standing rule of this channel. It does not bend, not for a headline, not for a trend, not for anyone. 3 envelopes. That is the architecture of tonight. The first envelope is the envelope of record, where every line can survive a subpoena. The second is the envelope of whispers, where the sourcing is real but the signatures are missing. And the third envelope is the one I will open slowly, because some of the names sealed inside it own the buildings where the first 2 are stored. Every other outlet chasing this story tonight is going to tear all 3 envelopes open at the same time, shake them over one bucket, and pour you the mixture as journalism. That will not happen here. Not tonight. Not with a subject this heavy. Open the first envelope. 25 years. That is how long one question has been sitting unanswered in the middle of this culture's living room, walked around by every executive who ever crossed it on the way to a board meeting. How does one man spend 3 straight decades shoulder to shoulder with a figure who now sleeps on a federal cot? Same photographs, same guest lists, same galas, same yachts, same charity auctions, and never once, not a single time, does he climb a courthouse stair. The man asking that question with a live microphone, a documentary crew, and a 3rd season reportedly already loading in the chamber is Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent. The same Curtis Jackson that Sean Carter, known to the rest of the planet as Jay-Z, spent 20 years treating like a punchline with a bank account, dismissed in interviews, mocked on records, laughed about in green rooms the trade press never quoted. And here's the first thing every competing channel is going to fumble this week. 50 Cent is not running a rap feud. He is building a prosecution file. And the first name in that file is not Diddy. Diddy already wears state-issued paperwork. Diddy is the smoke. The case Curtis Jackson has been assembling for 20 years, the case that has one particular Rock Nation conference room lit until 3 in the morning, is that for 2 straight years, the entire country has been watching the smoke and never thought to ask who struck the match. Freeze that frame. Hold it. Because roughly 11 minutes from now, one photograph that does not exist is going to explain more than the 3,000 photographs that do. Stay inside the first envelope, because this war did not start last quarter, and it did not start with a documentary trailer. It started in 1999, inside a cramped booth in Southside Queens, when a hungry kid off Jamaica Avenue pressed record on a track called How to Rob, dropped Sean Carter's name into the middle of it, mocked his whole posture, and dared the industry to admit the emperor's wardrobe was stitched together out of receipts. Jay-Z answered on wax. Diddy, according to reporting from that era, allegedly moved pieces behind velvet curtains to keep Mace from switching camps.
Rival liquor brands hit shelves within months of each other, and from that morning forward, Curtis Jackson has treated every trophy on Jay-Z's mantle, every glossy cover, every polished victory lap as another line on a running tab, arguing the entire scoreboard was calibrated from the penthouse down.
That is envelope 1. Keep riding with me because this timeline accelerates fast, and the next page of it is something the industry sat on for nearly a decade. Rewind to the lobby footage. That's still security that owned every news ticker in America for a solid week. According to 2 networks that examined the chain of custody, that clip stayed sealed inside a broadcaster's vault for 8 full calendar years before somebody, somewhere, decided the fruit had ripened. 8 years. Somebody stored it. Somebody guarded it. Somebody picked up a phone in one specific week of one specific month and told a producer the timing was finally right. Curtis Jackson has been chasing the only question about that tape that actually matters, not what the tape shows, who placed the call, and what their bank balance looked like the morning after. Now watch the order of events, because in this story, the order of events is oxygen. A memoir appears on an online storefront under Kim Porter's name, loaded with detonating claims aimed straight at Diddy. Her own children publicly torch the book and call it a fabrication. Investigators trace the manuscript to a ghostwriter named Chris Todd, who insists he assembled the whole thing from a mystery drive that materialized on his desk from nowhere. Then the federal raids in Miami and Los Angeles, then the indictment, then the trial, then the sentence. And through every frame of that procession, the raid, the arrest, the walk in handcuffs, the summations, one specific name never touched a single charging sheet. One specific voice never had to raise a right hand. One specific billionaire never had to explain one single second. Lean in right now, because this is where the wire inside the wall starts to hum. According to 3 separate sources who claim they have seen the rough cut, Season 2 of Curtis Jackson's docuseries does not park on Diddy's doorstep. It reportedly climbs the steps of a Tribeca brownstone. The film allegedly ties Sean Carter directly to the same rooms, the same evenings, the same alleged survivors whose testimony helped put Diddy inside a federal facility. Not the blurry lobby frame the internet already ground into dust, not another warmed-over party montage stitched together for cheap clicks. New testimony, new faces, sit-down accounts from people who claimed they stood inside those rooms, signed those NDAs, cashed those checks, and are finally prepared, on camera, to attach a surname to the man they insist was actually running the podium. That surname, if 50 Cent is telling the truth, is Carter. That is envelope 2. Say the word plainly, alleged, but understand exactly why that envelope has publicists canceling holiday weekends and corporate counsel pre-drafting takedown letters. Because a defamation suit against 50 Cent opens the door to discovery, and discovery is a door that only swings inward. Every entertainment attorney in Manhattan already knows that math, which is exactly why the loudest sound coming out of that particular boardroom this week has been absolutely nothing. And nothing, as you are about to see, happens to be this family's native language. Now let us talk about ammunition, because Curtis Jackson did not walk into this fight with empty pockets. He has been loading the chamber for 20 straight years, and he never bought the mythology, never bought the tailored suits, the boardroom photo ops, the carefully cropped images of Sean Carter leaning into a sitting president's ear. From the opening bar of How to Rob, 50 Cent has been telling anyone with a functioning eardrum that Jay-Z is a wardrobe hung over a calculator. Not a shooter, not a threat, an operator. A brilliant operator, he will concede that on record, but an operator who figured out extraordinarily early that in this business, deciding who is allowed to win pays better than winning ever did. And 50 Cent carries his own receipts, the numeric kind. He is not shy about them. His highest-selling album moved nearly 5 million units in the United States. Jay-Z's highest-selling album, Curtis Jackson insists, cleared closer to 430,000.
Domestic marketing spend, he argues, can manufacture an American folk hero because America is a market that can be bought with enough radio rotation and enough magazine ink. International listeners, he claims, cannot be bought as cheaply, and internationally, he says, the tally reads in a language no publicist has learned to bribe.
Then there is the halftime chapter. And for 50 Cent, this is not a footnote. This is a road flare tossed into a fuel depot. When the league was assembling that Los Angeles halftime lineup, the show that eventually crowned Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar, Curtis Jackson was, by his own account, nowhere on the original run sheet. And in the version he has repeated across dozens of radio interviews, the reason for that omission was one man, Sean Carter. Roc Nation held the league partnership, Roc Nation held the leverage, and Roc Nation, in 50 Cent's telling, was working the phones to keep him off that field. The performance only happened, he maintains, because Eminem personally called the league office and told the executives, in language nobody could misread, that he would not walk onto that stage unless 50 Cent walked onto it beside him. That, in Curtis Jackson's framing, was the exact moment the peace treaty was exposed as painted scenery. Because a friend does not need to be smuggled into his own city's biggest cultural night by a rapper from Detroit. And once you accept the halftime account, the rest of the mosaic starts clicking into place. The album release windows that always seem to land directly on top of a 50 Cent launch, the magazine covers that always tilt toward the Roc Nation aisle, and then the Grammys. This is where the room turns genuinely uncomfortable, because 50 Cent has been openly connecting Jay-Z's awards dominance to what he calls a marriage merger. Before the vows exchanged with Beyoncé, Jay-Z owned exactly 1 Grammy. Say that number back to yourself. 1. After the vows, after the joint tours, after the joint albums, after the fusion of 2 of the most powerful cultural brands on this hemisphere, the shelf detonated. 17 more. Then more after that. Then the children started collecting gold before releasing a full-length body of work. To the Jay-Z faithful, that surge is a legendary catalog finally receiving overdue flowers. To Curtis Jackson, that surge is evidence of something else. Proof, in his framing, that the Academy learned to hand out trophies like a loyalty punch card, making sure the biggest names in black music kept booking flights to the ceremony. You do not have to swallow his verdict to admit the sequence is strange. And inside a story where every timing decision reads strange, strange starts to smell like design. Which walks us straight into the chapter of Sean Carter's history that publicity teams have billed more hours burying than any other. December 1999, a Midtown nightclub called the Kit Kat Club. A stabbing. The wounded man was a record executive named Lance Rivera. The accused was Sean Corey Carter. Jay-Z eventually surrendered at Midtown South, was charged, and negotiated the case down to a misdemeanor, spending 0 nights in a cell. A nightclub knifing that closed on probation. Now, weigh that against Diddy. Weigh it against the men and women sitting in federal facilities right now for conduct less physically violent than a blade drawn inside a nightclub. Weigh it against the average defendant who walks into a New York criminal court without a Rockaware balance sheet behind him. And then ask yourself the question 50 Cent has been hammering for 20 straight years. How does a human being occupy the absolute summit of an industry for 30 consecutive years, positioned beside a man now sleeping on a federal mattress, and somehow never know one single thing that apparently everybody else in the building already knew? Curtis Jackson's answer is not shy. He knew. He always knew. And the only reason the culture is receiving this transmission tonight, 50 Cent argues, is that someone, somewhere, finally calculated that the protection had become more expensive than the man being protected. Hear that? That is the floor starting to tilt. Hold your line, because the next stretch should genuinely rattle you. The witnesses are crawling out of every seam in the wallpaper, and here's the sting.
None of them were ever hidden. Jaguar Wright, who spent years insisting that one specific celebrity John Doe, buried inside one specific federal filing, would not stay anonymous forever, has been telling anyone with a stream that she believes the curtain is finally rising. Gene Deal has been repeating the same account across radio circuits from coast to coast. Orlando Brown, dismissed for years as an unstable former child performer shouting into a broken microphone, is now being replayed on every timeline as his early warnings about Diddy snap into focus with a clarity the culture never wanted to grant him.
Every one of those voices was on the record. Every one of them had been hollering into cameras for years, and every one of them was laughed off because the money kept circulating, the executives kept billing, and the alleged victims kept getting treated as inconvenient static inside a machine that kept insisting everything was running fine. Then came the exact moment 50 Cent had been quietly bracing for. A two-term president acknowledged on camera from inside the Oval Office that Diddy's legal team had reached out about a possible pardon, with reports describing the president as visibly wavering. And Curtis Jackson, who had already spent weeks sounding the alarm against exactly that possibility, hit his platforms with a line so blunt it barely needed punctuation. You do not get a pardon while your mouth is still running. The history between those two figures runs deeper than the average viewer realizes. Diddy was reportedly a guest at that president's 2005 wedding. They posed side by side at charity galas. They circled the same Manhattan social ecosystem for the better part of a decade. Then, Diddy turned publicly, aggressively anti-Trump, which is historically not the strategy that lifts a clemency application to the top of the stack. And yet, here is the twist. The president still has not said no. He said he would consult the Justice Department. He said Puff had asked. He said Puff was a good friend, a good guy, that he might stick up for him. For the survivors, that is the sentence that cuts deepest. For 50 Cent, it is confirmation that the game is still the game. Because if wealth, celebrity, and one correctly timed phone call can convert a multi-year federal term into a weekend news bulletin, then everything Diddy allegedly did to everyone he allegedly did it to collapses in the coldest arithmetic imaginable into pocket change. And this is where the entire story slings back to the figure Curtis Jackson believes has been hovering above every scene since scene one. Because if Diddy walks, through a pardon, through an appeal, through some technicality buried on page 90 of a filing, the industry does not snap back to normal. It snaps back to being governed by the same architecture that installed him in the first place. It snaps back to being governed by the man standing one step off his shoulder in every photograph, the man who was somehow never one step off his shoulder inside any courtroom. Now the envelope of record opens a second time. The appeal is real. It has been filed. Diddy's counsel argues the conviction should be vacated in part because their client lacked a financial motive for transporting the men in question. The paperwork is in motion. The next round of briefs lands within weeks. And behind the curtain, according to 50 Cent, the calls are already being placed. The favors are already being cashed. The board is already being reset. And here is a detail Curtis Jackson has repeated to anyone willing to sit through it, and it lands differently every single time. He says he met Diddy exactly once, early in his career, and something about that meeting felt wrong in a way he could never quite articulate. He describes a man who kept offering to take him shopping, who kept using language better suited to a courtship than a business meeting, who kept probing whether Curtis Jackson would linger alone in a private room. 50 Cent walked out of that meeting knowing he would never sign a page with him. And in hindsight, he says, everything the public is only now learning to notice was already standing in the doorway during that single conversation. It was never locked inside a closet. It was standing directly in front of him. The same, Curtis Jackson insists, is true of Sean Carter. It was never concealed. The Grammy anomaly lives in the record books. The stabbing case lives in the court archives. The Rockmation deals live in public filings. The proximity to Diddy at every meaningful event is documented across photograph after photograph after photograph. And still, the industry looked past every inch of it because this industry has always been extraordinarily gifted at looking past whatever it needs to look past to keep the assembly line humming. So the question the culture is holding tonight is not really about Diddy anymore. Diddy has been convicted, Diddy has been sentenced, Diddy for the moment is inside a cell. The
The question is what happens when the glass case around the second man finally cracks. The question is what happens when the tapes 50 Cent claims to be sitting on actually reach the air.
The question is whether Jay-Z really is the silent architect of every rise and every collapse in modern hip-hop, or whether Curtis Jackson has finally overplayed a 20-year grievance and mistaken a pattern for a proof. Now, remember that photograph I promised you does not exist. Here it is. Where is Beyoncé in this frame? She is not in it, and that absence is the loudest data point of the entire calendar week. For a quarter century, whenever a Jay-Z legal or reputational storm rolled in, the family machine produced a Beyoncé image within 72 hours. A handhold, a red carpet embrace, a tour stage kiss, a portrait from the private loft. Count them yourself. The pattern is documented conduct. This time, the story broke on a Tuesday. It is now Sunday. No handhold, no hug, no post. That silence is not accidental. That silence is a communication strategy. And that strategy is telegraphing something no publicist will officially confirm for at least 6 months. Now, study the calendar, because the calendar is never accidental. Season 2 of the docuseries reportedly lands inside the same 90-day window as Grammy nominations, with Roc Nation artists sitting inside multiple award conversations this cycle. A high-profile documentary alleging a link between Roc Nation's founder and a federal defendant dropping in the middle of Grammy season is not a scheduling coincidence. That is a litigation posture. Curtis Jackson releases documentaries the way other men release tax returns. Every date audited, every gap measured, every clock converted into a weapon. But there is one variable Sean Carter cannot control, and 50 Cent has already promised to weaponize it. The archive never burns. The clips do not evaporate. The stills do not undevelop themselves. Every time a survivor speaks, every time a whistleblower posts, every time a decade-old interview resurfaces with a new caption and a new context, the shell loses another millimeter. And the thinner that shell becomes, the harder it gets for even the sharpest crisis firm on the eastern seaboard to keep the wall standing vertical. Curtis Jackson understands this. That is exactly why he is not slowing down. That is why the docuseries reportedly has a third season teased before the second one finishes rolling out. That is why he keeps posting the clips, the screenshots, the courtroom sketches, the 3 in the morning memes with the smirking captions. He is not chasing a rap battle any longer. He is trying to permanently rewrite how the culture remembers the last 30 years of its own history. And whether you cheer him, despise him, or roll your eyes at him twice a week, you cannot deny that at this specific moment, 50 Cent is the only major figure willing to say out loud, on camera, with his birth certificate name attached, the sentence every other member of this industry has been too terrified to whisper, that Diddy was never the ceiling. Diddy was the lightning rod, and the man the world should actually be examining is the man who spent 3 consecutive decades convincing everybody he floated above the storm. So here's what you monitor from tonight forward. Bookmark this second, timestamp it, because it's going to read like a leaked schedule in about 6 weeks. Track 3 things: the docket, the silence, the calendar. Watch for a suddenly generous settlement offer leaked to a friendly outlet. If that offer appears, understand something. The offer is not the story. The leak is the story. A leak means somebody flinched. Watch for a post from Curtis carrying an emoji nobody was expecting and a caption that reads like nonsense. Screenshot it. It will mean everything in 6 weeks. And watch the award positioning. If one of those Roc Nation artists quietly slides out of the Grammy conversation before nominations lock, that is not a creative decision. That is the risk management wing clearing the runway. Because here is the lesson, and it is bigger than one family and bigger than one billionaire. Every empire that ever came apart in this country misidentified the actual threat. The threat is never the rival gripping the microphone. The threat is never the reporter in the front row of the press pool. The threat is the quiet signature at the bottom of page 40 of a filing nobody live-streamed on a deadline nobody circled. Jay-Z has survived beefs, business collapses, investigations, and headlines that would have folded a lesser operator 10 separate times. But the one opponent Sean Carter has never been able to negotiate with is math. 2 decades of party photos, 1 federal inmate, 1 relentless Queens rapper, 1 docuseries, 1 pardon debate, 1 missing photograph. Some cracks do not polish out. So here is the prediction, time-stamped and archived. Before this Grammy season closes, one of 3 outcomes plays. Either Curtis Jackson drops new footage that permanently welds Jay-Z's name to at least one of the federal complaints already on file, or the administration formally rejects the Diddy pardon, and 50 Cent converts that rejection into the launchpad for season 3, or the shell holds for one more cycle, and Sean Carter glides into the legacy chapter his empire has been staging since 2022. There is no fourth option, because if 50 Cent is right, even fractionally right, then the throne 2 full generations spent bowing toward was never assembled out of artistry. It was assembled out of strategy, out of silence, out of an entire industry's willingness to look somewhere else on command. And if 50 Cent is right, then Diddy is not the finale of this story. Diddy is the warm-up act. The headliner is still parked inside a Manhattan office, scanning his inbox, monitoring his portfolio, waiting for the storm to blow past exactly the way every storm has blown past for 30 consecutive years. Now drop your verdict in the comments. Tell me which side you land on. Was Diddy betrayed by the man standing 1 step off his shoulder in every single photograph? Or is Curtis Jackson running the longest, coldest, most calculated demolition operation this culture has ever recorded? If you have been riding with this channel since the earliest uploads, welcome back to the table where the documents get read out loud. If you are brand new, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and lock in. Because in this story, the credits never actually roll. They only fade into the next scene. And the next scene is already in production.